It's fed and watered by God's mighty hand. He sent the snow in winter, the warmth to swell the grains, the breeze and the sunshine, and soft refreshing rain. He only is the maker of all things near and far. He paints the wayside flowers. He lights the evening star. The winds and waves obey him. For him the birds are fed. Much more to us his children. He gives our daily bread. We thank thee then, O Father, for all things bright and good, the seed time and the harvest, our life, our health, our food. Accept the gifts we offer, for all thy love imparts, and what thou most desirest, our humble, thankful hearts.
Good to see everyone this morning. Appreciate everyone being here. The snow last week really threw us all for a loop. Snow does that to us. We're Texans. We're not that familiar with snow, especially here in the last few years. We're not that familiar with snow, so it kind of throws us for a loop. But it's good to see you. It's good to see you today. Good to see everyone here today. Let me see. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this thing working or not. Let's see. We'll give it a shot. Last week we were supposed to start a series of lessons. I was supposed to start a series of lessons to present on the family. Didn't do that last week, obviously. Today we're going to start that. And in the next few weeks, Lord willing, we'll be talking about family. We'll be talking about our duties, our responsibilities, our roles. And we want to remember that. We have families growing in the congregation. We're so thankful for that. We're very blessed. Our families are blessed, and we want to remember that. And we want to know and understand and remember our duties and our responsibilities as family members, what we are supposed to do. How can those of us who aren't directly physically related, how can we be an example? How can we help others who are directly physically related? Hopefully we'll go into a lot of these things, and we'll study a lot of these things and be able to help one another, build up one another, strengthen one another. Family is something in the United States that is being disregarded every day. How do you say that? How can I say that? Well, it's being disregarded. Family is being disregarded in our Congress. In the United States Congress, family is being disregarded. The new Congress has put in laws, rules in their body that says that you can't talk about mothers and fathers. You can't use the word mother and father and son and daughter and grandmother and grandfather. You cannot use those words. Say what? How can we not use those words and still try to bring people together? Because the basic unit of this country is the family. That's the basic unit of this country. It's the family. And we need to know and understand that. We need to be able to have an understanding of family. And it starts, quite literally, it starts at home. And if we're going to have a strong country, we're going to have strong families. If we are going to have a strong church, a local organization, we're going to have strong families. People, men and women, who are willing to stand up and say, I'm going to serve God first. I'm going to put God first in my life. That is the priority in my life, serving God. We need men to do this. We need women to do this. We need husbands and wives to do this and express that to their family, to their children, to their grandchildren, to their nieces, their nephews. And we build up a strong, cohesive family by being that example, by having that priority in our lives. When we talk about family, a multitude of things might come to mind, especially in the world we live in today. A multitude of things might come to mind. But a dictionary definition of family is a group of one or more parents and their children living together as a unit. All the descendants of a common ancestor. A family. Now, believe it or not, I looked on the Wikipedia, and they had a pretty good definition of family. Go figure. Go figure. It's long, but it says, in human society, family is a group of people related either by, that big word, recognized by birth, consanguinity, or affinity by marriage or other relationship. The purpose of families is to maintain, now read this, listen to this. The purpose of families is to maintain the well-being of its members and of society. Ideally, families would offer predictability, structure, and safety as members mature and participate in the community. In most societies, it is within, now read this, listen to this. In most societies, it is within families that children acquire socialization for life outside the family and acts as the primary source of attachment, nurturing, and socialization for humans. That's a pretty good definition. I kind of like that. Additionally, as the basic unit for meeting the basic needs of its members, it provides a sense of boundaries for performing tasks in a safe society. It sets up rules, in other words. Provides a sense of boundaries for performing tasks in a safe environment. Ideally, builds a person into a functional adult. Oh, if we could only have functional adults. That's what a family does. Transmits culture and ensures continuity of humankind with precedence of knowledge. So what does the family do? It builds up, it strengthens itself. Why? For the furtherance of the family. And if the family furthers, I know that's not proper. If the family grows, guess what? Society grows too. Why? Because family is the building block of society. If the family sets up the proper boundaries, then the society is going to grow within those proper boundaries. What are the proper boundaries? We have the laws of men, or we have the laws of God. Now I'll give you a chance here to choose. Which one is heavier? The laws of men or the laws of God? Which one weighs more? Which one is weightier? Which one is better? Obviously, it's the laws of God. That's what we're going to do. And if we're going to set up families, build and strengthen families, they have to be based on something. Let's base our families on the law of God. Let's base our families on the thoughts, the ways, the ideas of God, because God gives us the direction that we need. As our families begin, as our families grow, as our families mature, as our families spread their wings and have families of their own. we're starting that off with the very basic principles, the very basic steps. Let's turn to God and find out what these are first. Now, when we're talking about families, I'm going to be talking in a very, very general sense. There are all different types of families that we have today. And we're not going to get into that really and truly today. That might be in later lessons. The ideal family is the husband-wife relationship. That's the building block of a family. That's the ideal. That's what God has established. We know that there are all kinds of different things out there today that are described as families. We're not dismissing any of these. We're not discounting any of these. But we're simply going to go back and look at what God has decided, what God has established, what God has given man. And we're going to strive for that. And we can always make the application to our particular situation, whatever that might be. We can always make the application. But what we're going to look at is we're going to strive to go back and see what God has said about family. What God has set up, what God has established, what God has prescribed. We go back to the Old Testament. And the word family is used to describe groups of men and women and their offspring. Throughout the Old Testament, groups of men and women and their offspring. It is only used, really the word family is only used once in the New Testament. Now, there are translations that have translated the Greek word and put in the word family, but really it's only used once, and it translates using the word as a synonym for the actual Greek. But we're gonna go with the idea of family and look at what God has established, what God has set up, and make the application to ourselves. When God created man, He created the very idea of family. Look over at Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 2. We'll start there. Go back to the very beginning. Genesis 2. And in verse 24. Genesis 2 and in verse 24. It's recorded there, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Now, before there ever was a family, God sets up the idea of the family. Before there ever was, Adam couldn't leave his father and mother. There was no father and mother. Adam was the first man. But the idea is embedded into the mind of man that at some point the man is going to leave his father and mother, and by implication the woman is going to leave her father and mother, and the man and the woman are going to come together and they are going to create a new family. I hear preachers all the time, and I try to avoid this at all costs. Preachers, whenever they're marrying someone, they're saying, well, we're blending families. No, you're not. You're not blending families. You're creating a new family, as the pattern of God suggests, tells us. Now, will there be some interaction between the two families? Yeah, there's going to be some interaction. But you're not one great big family now. No, you still have a family over here, the family of the bride, the family of the groom, or the family of the groom, the family of the bride, whichever side they're sitting on, I don't know. But now you have a new family with a husband and wife, the bride and the groom. They create their own family. That's what God says. Separated apart from the families that then existed. Now, what we want to do is fathers and mothers, we want to hopefully instill in our sons and daughters the drive to be obedient to God and create this family according to the pattern that God has suggested, and we'll talk about it, according to the pattern that God has given us. And that family will choose to serve God. We'll continue with there. But there's a new family when a man joins himself to a wife. A new family. They are husband and wife. Man and wife. They are a new family. In Genesis chapter 4, we read about the first family, Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. And then we go on and we read about Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel. We read about Adam and Eve and Seth then after that in Genesis chapter 5. And we read in Genesis chapter 5, we read about the families after Adam and Eve. And this goes all the way to Noah in verse 32, the genealogies. Genealogies of man. It goes all the way to Noah here. And what we understand is the building blocks of the family are The building blocks are, the building blocks are the husband and wife relationship. This is the only way of continuing the line of man. I want to say this again. The only way of continuing the line of man is to have a husband and wife relationship. You're not going to get a baby born in a husband and husband relationship, in a wife and wife relationship, in a husband and goat relationship, in a dolphin and wife relationship, in a woman marrying herself relationship. It's not going to happen. God had a thought. God had a plan. I'll create a male, I'll create a female, and guess what? They're going to procreate and have babies. That's the way it works. This is the building block, and we need to understand that. And what we need to do is each person needs to understand their role, their particular role as that building block. The husband needs to understand his role. The wife needs to understand her role as the building block. And that's what we're going to look at this morning. We're going to start with the building blocks, and we're going to build this family over the next few weeks here. The husband, in Genesis chapter 12 and verse 1. Genesis chapter 12 and verse 1. And we simply read here the promises that were made to Abram. Now the Lord had said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you, to make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So Abram departed, as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. Lot chose to go with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then Abram took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and all the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan, so they came to the land of Canaan. What do we see about this? The husband has to be the leader. The family needs a leader. God is the leader, ultimately. But the physical leader of the family is the husband. Husbands, you got to get up and lead. Be a leader. Blaze the trail. Husbands, that's your duty. That's your responsibility. Make a decision. Oh, if husbands would just make a decision. Now, Linda would say, you're preaching to yourself right now, because we'll leave from services, and she'll say, what do you want for dinner? What do you want for lunch? And I'll say, I don't care. What do you want for lunch? You decide. And see, I can't make a decision. Husbands, make decisions. Lead your family. Choose to serve God and lead your family towards God always. Be a leader. Abram was a leader. In Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 23. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 23. I'm going to blow the husband's heads really big here. Okay, are you ready for this? Here we go. For the husband is what? The head of the wife. There we go. Now the husbands are the head of the wife. You lead. You take charge. Whatever you say goes, husbands. For the husband is the head of the wife, as also Christ is the head of the church. He is the Savior of the body. So, husbands, get the big head here. I'm going to deflate you here in just a second. I'm going to deflate you just as quick. But you're the head. The head does the thinking. The head stops and plans out things and figures things out. The head is submissive to God, but then the head is going to lead the family. The husband is the head of the wife. Men, if you take a wife, you have certain and understood responsibilities towards her. Boy, I got some typos in this that I got to fix. Okay, husbands, if you take a wife, you need to understand your responsibilities. You need to understand your responsibilities towards your wife. You can't just get the big head inflated ego and say, I'm the head, and whatever says go, this is my castle, and I'm the king, and I'm put my foot down and put my thumb down, and you're going to stand to my thumb all the rest of your days. No, that's not going to work. It's never going to work. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. Read that last part of that sentence again. As Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. Christ gave himself for the church. So husbands, what are you supposed to do? The love that you have for your wife, you're supposed to give yourself for her. That doesn't mean you have to stop being the leader. You're never stopping to be the lead, stopping from being the leader. But what you're doing is you have this overpowering love for your wife that you're willing to give yourself even for her. So who's first? You or your wife? Wife is first. Who's first in my house? God is first. Try to put God first every single day. Who's second? Linda is. If y'all ever tell her this, I'm just going to shoot you all. Linda's first. Linda's first. I've got to try to please her. Do I excel at that all the time? No. But I never give up trying. I really don't. Husbands, how much do you really love your wife? Are you willing to give up for her? You've got to be willing to do that. In verses 28 and 29, same chapter, verses 28 and 29. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church. So husbands, how far are you supposed to love your wife? You're supposed to nourish her and cherish her. Be willing to give yourself for her. She's preferred above you. You don't hate yourself, so why would you hate your husband? Your wife. Husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. You take care of yourself. You take care of your wife. You put your wife first. You're never going to build a family if it's all about me. It's all about me, it's all about me, it's all about me. And if everyone would just understand it's all about me, everything would work better. The family would be better if they would understand that it's all about me. No, you're setting your family up for failure. You're setting your family up for failure from the very beginning, because you're telling your wife that she has no purpose, she has no reason, she has no cause, she has no place. The Bible says something different. The Bible says she has a place. And it's preferred above you. You put yourself last. You cherish her. You nourish her. You take care of her. Verse 33. Verse 33. Nevertheless, let each of you in particular so love his own wife as himself. You see, who doesn't love himself? Who doesn't love himself? We generally have a good love for ourselves. Because you know what? You look in the mirror, and I'm a pretty good looking dude. I fool myself when I look in the mirror because I see just how old I've gotten. Just how the sags and the bags and the wrinkles and the crinkles are there. I'm a pretty good looking dude. I got it going. I love myself. You know what? We have a general affection for ourselves. We need to make sure that we have a double general affection for our wives. They're preferred above me. My wife is preferred above me. I try to do the very best that I can. I still fail from time to time, but she is first. She's first. Why? Because I love her, I cherish her, I nourish her. I cherish her more than you can possibly imagine. More than she can possibly imagine. Because she's the one who brings me back down to earth. She's the one who digs me up out of the hole that I've dug myself into. She's the one who gets me out of the way of the oncoming obstacle. She's the one who puts me in the way so that we can climb over the mountain. She's the one who does that. Still doing my best to lead, because I'm the head and I have to take the responsibility, but we each understand our role. Husbands, you must understand your role. If you're ever going to start a family, if you're ever going to have a family, you've got to understand your role. Colossians 3 and verse 19. Colossians 3 and in verse 19. Here we go. Here we go. Husbands, love your wives and do not be bitter toward them. Okay, don't be bitter toward them. Easily said, isn't it? What does bitter mean? Bitter means angry, hurt, resentful because of one's bad experience or a sense of unjust. She didn't treat me fair, and so I don't like her right now. Slam the door. No. Remember, we can be angry, but we do not sin. What do you do if you're angry with your wife? You go and you tell her. You don't yell at her. You don't wag your finger at her. Why? Because if you love her, you're not going to do that. You don't want anybody wagging their finger at you, do you? No. And so we're not bitter towards our wives. We're not angry towards our wives. We're not resentful towards our wives. But what a husband and wife are going to do is they're going to work out the situation, the problem, the circumstance together. The husband is going to be the lead. He's going to take the command of the situation. And we'll get to the wife role here in just a second here. But what he's not going to do is he's not going to be bitter or angry. You can't buy that vote. That's okay, because I didn't want to vote anyway. I just want to look at it. We're not going to be bitter towards our wives. And then here's the big one here. 1 Peter 3 and verse 7. Here, 1 Peter 3 and verse 7. Here's the big one here. Husbands, likewise dwell with them, your wives, with understanding. Any husband who can figure out and understand a woman, you let me know. We'll compare notes. Dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and as heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. Now, what we're doing here is we're striving to understand the female perspective. We're striving to understand the wife perspective. We're striving to understand a different person's perspective about the situation. We're working together because we're living together. We're husband and wife. And we're going to have an understanding with one another. And this will greatly depend upon the wife's response to the husband, the woman's response to her husband. We give honor to our wives. It's not necessarily that they're weaker in mind but there is a weaker element to the female body than there is to the male body. There's a strength to the female body that the male bodies don't have. I've seen that job. I don't want that job. I don't want it. She can do it better. But in all things, I'm going to give honor to her. Didn't put in here, nowhere in here did I put Psalm 31. No, it's Proverb 31. Proverb 31. Nowhere, was it Proverb 31? Nowhere in here did I put that. Look over at Proverbs 31, verses 10 through 31, the rest of the chapter there. Proverbs 31, 10 through 31. Nowhere in this whole lesson did I put that. But at the end of this, we read in verse 26, she opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. She watches over the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, and her husband also, and he praises her. What does he say about his wife? He says, many daughters have done well, but you excel them all. He gives honor to his wife. He recognizes her abilities. He recognizes her talents. He recognizes her responsibilities and her taking care of her responsibilities. And he says, you excel everyone. And I'll tell you right now, man, I have the very best wife in the whole wide world. Your wife doesn't touch mine. And I'm quite serious. I have the best wife in the whole wide world. Couldn't have done better. She excels all. I love her and I cherish her. She's first. And husbands, that's the way it better be with your wife. You better be saying the exact same things. If you're not saying that, you're not building a family. You're building a kingdom or your king. You're building an anarchist society because it's going to fall down eventually. You're building you're building something that isn't going to last. Because you are the king, the ruler, or you're either the milquetoast husband who gets stepped on. And nothing ever gets done because you won't do anything. The husband has to take the responsibilities of being a husband, being the leader of the family. It's not fun now all the time. But you have to stand up and make those decisions. Okay, the wife. Remember, we're talking about building block of the family here. And if we're going to talk about families, if we're going to talk about raising families and building families and being a family, we've got to start with the building blocks. The husband and the wife are the very building blocks. In Genesis chapter 2 and in verse 18, as we look at this, Genesis chapter 2 and in verse 18, it's written there, and the Lord said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him." Some translations have a help meet. What it is it's a help meet for him. In other words, it's a help that is comparable to him, that he needs. When God created woman, he gave man a helper comparable to him because man needs that. Man is losing something, and God said, "I'm going to give it to you in the form of woman." Women think differently, they act differently, they talk differently, they walk differently, they react differently than men. And we need that. We need that interaction. We need that viewpoint. We need those words. We need that encouragement. We need that, "Oh, you better stop." We need that. And God created a comparable person for us. He created woman. It should be pointed out that she is not a slave. Woman is not a slave. Wife is not a slave. She's comparable to man. She is a help that is meet for him, that is made for him. They work together. Women, if you take a husband, you have certain, I did it again, and understood responsibilities toward him. I'm going to have to go back and really spell check this thing or check the grammar on this. It's really bad. Dr. Gale's going to start throwing stuff at me here in a second. Genesis 3 and verse 16. Genesis 3 and verse 16. Part of the responsibilities to the woman, he said, after Eve and Adam sinned in the garden, God placed curses on the serpent, on woman, and on man. And God said to the woman, "I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception and pain. You shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you." Guess who made God the head of the woman? Guess who God made the head of the woman? Man, I'm going to get this right. God did. I still messed it up. God put man in charge. God did. That doesn't make woman a slave. That just says that there is an order to things. And the order is man and then woman. The order is that she is going to have a desire for her husband. Now, husbands, if we're slave masters, if we're taskmasters, we can drive that desire straight out of them. Because why would a woman want to desire and have a desire, have a love for someone who mistreats her all the time? It's natural. It's a human thing. We begin to resent that. Ephesians 5. Back over to Ephesians 5 and verse 22. Ephesians 5 and verse 22. Let's see there. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. Well, we already know from Genesis 3 and verse 16 that the husbands have rule over the wife, and the wife must submit to her husband. Colossians 3 and verse 18, wives, submit to your own husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Now, we're not going to get into what if the husband is a bad husband. What if the husband refuses to let the wife serve God? We're not going to get into that. The wife has a duty and a responsibility. We can bring that up later on. The point here is we're going to go with the basis of the husband and the wife. They're both trying to serve God to the very best of their ability each and every day. It's the best possible picture. And so the wife is supposed to submit to her husband. What does that mean? If the husband says we're going to Wendy's for lunch today, the wife says, okay, let's go to Wendy's for lunch today. If the husband says we're going to go to vacation at the beach this year, the wife says, okay, we'll go vacation at the beach this year. Whatever it is, however mundane, however silly you may think those are, the wife is going to submit to the husband. And those are silly and mundane things that really and truly don't really matter a whole lot in the picture of things. But the wife is going to be submissive to her husband. Ephesians 5 and verse 24. Ephesians 5 and verse 24. Therefore, just as the church is subject to the husband, so the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Boy, this is really pounding on the women, isn't it? This is really pounding on the women. The husband has rule over her. The wife has to submit to her husband. She's got to be in subjection to him. All God is doing is just setting up an order of things. If the man is going to be the head of the household, he's got to be the head of the household. He's got to rule the household. Not as a tyrant, but as a just and fair ruler. And he's got to have people who are subject to him. And you think, Chip, you're really digging yourself deep here. I know I am. I realize that. But if the husband has a love for his wife as he ought to, then this is all going to work. It's all going to work. Why? Because in verse 33, the wife is going to respect her husband. At the very end of verse 33, husbands are going to love their own wives as themselves, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. If the husband's a tyrant, she's not going to respect him. It's natural for us not to respect tyrants. It's in our nature. If there is a president of the United States that I don't approve of, me personally I don't approve of, I will still refer to him as the President of the United States. Privately, I may tell you exactly what I think of the President of the United States, but I'm still going to have that general respect for him that's due him, even though he or she may be just the biggest doofus in the whole wide world. You see, the wife has to have a respect for the husband, and she's going to do that if the husband loves the wife as himself. If the husband has that love, that respect, that understanding for his wife. These verses, it has to be understood that these verses refer to her love and respect for the husband. Why is she going to obey him? Because she loves him and she respects him. She respects his leadership in their mutual desire to serve God, to follow God. She understands that. She respects that. She understands the difficult decisions that he has to make from day to day concerning their mutual love for God, their mutual drive towards the heavenly home. It only works if both the husband and the wife are working, are striving for that. 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 1. 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 1. Let's see what that has to say. Wives, likewise, be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they without a word may be won by the conduct of their wives, and when they observe your chaste conduct accompanied by fear. So even if the husband here is not a member of the body of Jesus Christ, the wife is going to react and act in the similar manner, in the similar fashion. She's going to be submissive to her husband. This is up until the point that the husband wants her to do something that is against the law of God, against the gospel of Jesus Christ. But we see the conduct of the wives here. We read down in verse 4, "For in this manner, in former times, the holy women who trusted in God also adorned themselves, being submissive to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are if you do good and are not afraid with any terror." You see, Sarah even followed Abraham and followed after Abraham. Even when he said, "Let's get up and leave Haran and let's go to the land of Canaan," what is the wife going to do? She's going to say, "We're going where and doing what? We're not going to stick around somewhere. No, we're getting up and go." Sarah said, "We're getting up and go." Now, if any husband forces his wife to call him Lord, the little L Lord, that's an issue that you have. Linda doesn't because she has such respect for me. So, but see, some men have that attitude in their that I'm going to have my thumb over me, and I'm going to be your Lord and Master, and that happens in the church. I'm going to be your Lord and Master and have my thumb over me and over you, and it ruins the building block. It ruins the relationship. It just divides the relationship further and further apart. And that what's supposed to be a building block right next to one another is driven further and further apart because the wife doesn't have respect for the husband. The husband really doesn't love the wife as himself because he mistreats her. He abuses her. And so we don't have that building block that is going to create a family. And if we're going to create a family, we have to start with the basics. We have to start with the very, very, very simple things. You look over, we're not going to read all of this, but let's see, where did it go? Oh, we see that, there we go. In 1 Samuel 25, verses 14 through 28, we get a picture of Abigail. All of a sudden, her husband's name just went right out of it. Nabal, thank you very much. Abigail and Nabal. Nabal was a scoundrel, and she even knew he was a scoundrel. And yet she is the example of a wife who was even standing up for the things of God and putting herself in the way of danger. But she's the ultimate example of a wife. Abigail is. She was, even her own husband, she knew he was a scoundrel. He was a fool. And so we see this picture of a wife here from Sarah to Abigail. We see pictures of wives here. We're going to look at a few more coming up here at the very end of this lesson. The husband and the wife, they feed. The relationship of the husband and wife feeds off of and dwells with one another. Whenever I'm counseling, if someone asks me to do a wedding, I want to sit down and have some counseling, quote unquote, some counseling sessions with the prospective husband and wife, and I want to talk to them, and I give them study materials, and I expect them to come back with the study materials completed and be able to answer the questions. And I look at them and I say, okay, here's the husband over here, here's the wife over here. What does the husband give to the wife? He gives 100%. What does the wife give to the husband? She gives 100%. What do they get back? They get back 100%. They don't get back 200%, they get back 100% because the husband is constantly and continually thinking of the wife first. The wife is constantly and continually thinking of the husband first. And what do? They give back to one another everything that they would give, they get it right back. And when that happens, the relationship works. They feed off one another. And you've seen it. The husband and wife, they don't really even have to say anything to one another. They're thinking the same thing. Linda and I do that all the time. We think the same thing. She said, well, this is what I was thinking. And I said, I've been thinking the same thing. Let's do that. And it's amazing. Why? Because you're feeding off one another. You're giving one another. You're not taking, you're giving. I want what's best for her. She wants what's best for me. Guess what? It's best for both of us. Guess what? It's best for the family. It's best for the family. If the husband, it does not work if the husband says he loves his wife but treats her as a slave. It doesn't work. It does not work if the wife submits to her husband in words only but has no respect for him. It's like the little boy who the teacher says, sit down in your seat, and he says, well, in my mind, I'm standing up. He has no respect for the teacher. The wife, she submits to but has no respect for him. The relationship is not going to work. It does not work with any combination of these things. Any combination of anything doesn't exist where they're not putting each other first. It doesn't exist. This relationship doesn't exist. It doesn't work. It's never going to work because they are thinking of themselves only. And remember, we're thinking in the best possible light of the husband-wife relationship as God created it. We've got to separate ourselves from the way the world sees the husband and wife relationship today. The world sees it as something that's totally skewed from what God has said. Well, she does her thing and I do my thing and it works. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it works for us. No, it doesn't. You're supposed to work with one another. You're supposed to aid and help one another. Well, we aid and help one another by being apart. Okay, well, we've got more problems that we can talk about here. We'll talk about that at a different time. We're talking about the relationship as God has intended it. It works when both the husband and the wife understand their separate responsibilities toward each other, and then they do them. They get up and they do them. Okay, if we look for good examples of husbands and wives, we can get a good picture. In Acts chapter 18, we see Aquila and Priscilla. Acts chapter 18, we see Aquila and Priscilla. They were tent makers. They worked well as tent makers together. But you know what? They also worked well as a husband and wife team in the service of God, in the service of the gospel of Jesus Christ. They took Apollos aside together. They together took Apollos aside and taught him more accurately the ways of the Lord. They worked together. It's amazing what a husband and wife can do when they work together. We look at Joseph and Mary in Luke chapter 2 and verse 41. Turn over to Luke chapter 2 and in verse 41. It says there, his parents went, Jesus' parents, his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem according to the custom of the feast. You see, they had a pattern, they had a custom of serving God. And they did this year after year after year after year. And what did their children see? Not just Jesus, but the rest of their children. What did they see? They saw their parents serving God day after day after day after day, year after year. This is when we go. Why do we go to Jerusalem at this time? Because it's the feast. It's the ordained feast of God, and we go to Jerusalem. Well, why do we do that? Because God commanded us to do this. We're serving God, putting God first. And so Joseph and Mary did that. We learn that. We learn this. We teach this to our children. What's most important? What's the priority? Above anything and everything, the priority is serve God. When the husband serves God and the wife doesn't, there's a problem in your building blocks. When the wife serves God and the husband doesn't, there's a problem in your building blocks. Husband and wife, God said, you are one. And so what do? You put those building blocks together, and they both choose to serve God, and you've got a really strong basis for a family. Just as God prescribed. There are some bad examples too. We look at 1 Kings chapter 16, verses 29 through 34. Turn over there. 1 Kings chapter 16. 1 Kings chapter 16. Verses 29 through 34. In the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab the son of Omri became king over Israel. And Ahab the son of Omri reigned over Israel and Samaria 22 years. Now Ahab the son of Omri did evil in the sight of the Lord, more than all who were before him. And it came to pass, as though it had been a trivial thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, he took as wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and he went and served and worshipped Baal. There he set up an altar for Baal in the temple of Baal, which he had built in Samaria. And Ahab made a wooden image. Ahab did more to provoke the Lord God of Israel, Lord God of Israel to anger than all the kings who were before him. This is what Ahab did. He and Jezebel. And we can read the rest of the story of Ahab and Jezebel and how wicked they both were. Ahab, in his weakness, he says, "Oh, I want that field, that vineyard, but he won't sell it to me." Jezebel says, "Don't worry about it. I'll get it for you." And she plans the murder. She plans the death, so that Ahab could get the field. Who was it? Naboth's field? I don't know. Again, it fails me. But what did this husband and wife do? What did this husband and wife set up and establish? Well, you look over at 2 Kings chapter 8. 2 Kings chapter 8, and you see what this husband and wife team established. 2 Kings chapter 8, and in verse 16. Now in the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat, having been king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, began to reign as king of Judah. Now Jehoram is reigning. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. He walked in the ways of the king of Israel, just as the house of Ahab had done, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord. What did Ahab and Jezebel do? They set up evil in their family. Their building block was evil, was contrary to what God had said, and they taught their daughter to do it. Athaliah, they taught their daughter to do it also. And she was instrumental with Jehoram in leading Judah to sin. You see, we see good husbands and wives building strong families. We see evil, wicked husbands and wives building wicked and evil families. The building blocks are there. The husband and wife, they are the primary building blocks of a family as it's defined by God. And remember, as we opened up this lesson with a definition by man, we've got to go back and understand that our definitions truly come from God as to what a family is and how a family is to be built, what the function of a family is. A man leaves his father and mother and joins himself to his wife, and they become a new family. The husband is the leader of that family. The husband points himself towards God. If he doesn't point himself towards God, he's going to lose the respect of his wife. That doesn't mean that she can reject him and turn away from him, but she loses his respect because he's not choosing to serve God and be of service to God each and every day. Lead the family in the service of God. But just as Joseph and Mary taught their children, husbands and wives who have children must also teach them. The important thing is to teach our children to love God, to be of service to God, to put God first in their lives each and every day. And this is the primary building block of a family, the husband and wife. In the following weeks here, the next few weeks here, we'll be adding to these building blocks. We'll be adding children, adding grandchildren, adding other duties and responsibilities. How far this extends, how far this goes, and we'll talk about our families, and it'll give us a good chance to take a look at our families. It's given me a good chance to take a look at my family and where my family sits and where my family stands. What my duties, what my responsibilities are to my family. So be looking forward to that in the next few weeks as we strive to build an example of the family that God intended us to have. Appreciate your kind attention this morning. We'll close the lesson at this time. We never want to close without offering anyone an opportunity to obey the gospel of Jesus Christ. This lesson hasn't been about the gospel of Jesus Christ in that sense, in our obedience to it. But we never want to close out our worship time without offering someone, or without offering anyone the opportunity to obey the gospel of Jesus Christ. You need to be baptized into Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sins. That's the bottom line to that. Acts 2 and verse 38. Acts 22 and verse 16, Ananias said to Saul, "And why are you waiting? Arise and be baptized, and wash away your sins, calling on the name of the Lord." That's what we're supposed to do. We know and understand our duty, our responsibility to God. He has established the building blocks, the primary building blocks of man's salvation, and we need to respond to it. We need to respond. Everything is ready. We're ready and waiting for your response to be baptized into Jesus Christ. If you're here this morning as a member of the body of Jesus Christ and your life isn't as it should be, make the correction. You know what you need to do. Make the correction while you have time and while you have opportunity. Now is the time. Today is the day. If you need the prayers of the congregation, let us know. We'll pray with you and pray for you. We'll help and encourage one another. We won't belittle one another, but we'll help and encourage and build each other up as we all walk towards our heavenly goal, our home in heaven. It's just over there. If you're subject to the invitation, or we can be of any service today, please come forward as we stand and sing the song that's been selected.
The great physician now is near, the sympathizing Jesus. He speaks the drooping heart to cheer. Oh, hear the voice of Jesus. Sweetest note in seraph's song, sweetest name on mortal tongue, sweetest carol ever sung, Jesus, blessed Jesus. Oh, glory to the dying Lamb, I now believe in Jesus. I love the blessed Savior's name, I love the name of Jesus. Sweetest note in seraph's song, sweetest name on mortal tongue, sweetest carol ever sung, Jesus, blessed Jesus. His name dispels my guilt and fear, no other name but Jesus. Oh, how my soul delights to hear the charming name of Jesus. Sweetest note in seraph's song, sweetest name on mortal tongue, sweetest carol ever sung, Jesus, blessed Jesus. And when to that bright world above we rise to see our Jesus, we'll sing around the throne of love, His name, the name of Jesus. Sweetest note in seraph's song, sweetest name on mortal tongue, sweetest carol ever sung, Jesus, blessed Jesus.
Thank everybody for attending this morning, and just remember those